First story. My wife went on to see her family and cheated on me with her ex, and I found out after her ex sent me their sex video. Now she has announced she is pregnant. I don't know who the father is, so I filed for divorce. But everyone calls me selfish for expecting a monogamous relationship in this day and age, while my entitled wife is begging me to reconcile, saying she will never cheat again. Apologies in advance. This is a very long story, and I'll try to be as detailed yet direct as possible. My wife F32 and I am 27 experienced some relationship problems caused by an ex-boyfriend of hers that I believe to still be affecting us today. For some context, we first met when we were studying overseas and working part-time together at the same restaurant. I'm from Australia and she is from France. After a few shifts together, we became friends and then eventually started dating. I was 19 and she was 24 at the time. We dated for a little over 3 years before moving back to my home country, and 2 years after moving, we decided to get married. The problems started when my wife and I just got engaged. We decided to do the obligatory social media announcement posts, informing everyone about our exciting news. It was around a week later when I was sent a message request by an Instagram account I didn't know. But I saw that my wife and the person followed each other. So I thought it was one of her old school friends or something, and decided to accept the request. By then, I had gotten over 100 messages from my wife's friends and family. I'd never met congratulating us. So I was expecting this message request to be more of the same. Instead of a congratulatory message and an introduction as to who they were, I was sent a bunch of screenshots of messenger chats that were in French and a message that followed saying that I should read these conversations to know how my fiancé is. I was feeling that something was a bit off, but still believing that this person was a family member or friend of my wife, whose English wasn't very good. I decided to translate the screenshots to be able to respond to them. Naively, I translated them to think that they'd just be some cute messages to only read that it was conversations between two people. The topics included the recounting of sexual encounters, the sexual acts that they had performed boyfriends, and how inferior Asian guys are to white guys. I am Asian. By the way, I sent a message back to the person, asking who the messages were between. They replied, saying that it was my new SLT wife, and sent 3 as X tapes. I was in shock, and immediately thoughts that she had cheated on me filled my mind. After sitting for a while and trying to comprehend what had happened, I decided that I would watch the videos to try to see if it is actually my wife in them. Later that night, after my wife had fallen asleep, I decided to watch the videos, believing that there would be no way that the woman I had been living with for 5 years could do something like this. But to my disappointment, I confirmed that all videos were of her. The first 2 of the videos appeared to have the same guy, and the third video had a different guy. To say I was furious was an understatement. I had literally watched the woman I wanted to spend the rest of my life with FING not 1, but 2 other guys. The most painful and infuriating things for me were seeing her acting in ways she never did with me, and also doing certain sexual acts with other guys that I really wanted to try. But she downright refused to do with me, even after 5 years of dating and a proposal. I decided that I needed to confront her, thinking that she had cheated on me with a bunch of other guys. I wanted her to explain to me why she did it. After staying awake and waiting through the entire night, and not being able to wait anymore, I woke her up at 6 a.m. and showed her everything that was sent to me, and asked her to explain what this all was. She immediately started hyperventilating, then began to cry. She kept repeatedly apologizing and begging me not to leave her, and was like this for a good 10 minutes. After managing to calm her down, she explained that she never cheated on me, and these videos were taken before we had met, and that she didn't even know these videos existed. She also tried reassuring me that the messages were between her and her best friend, and they would share everything about their lives with each other. She said the things they talked about were from so long ago, that it felt like a different person had written the messages. She kept repeating that the things she said in those messages made her feel deep shame and regret. It was so embarrassing to her that she ever acted and spoke like that. To try to prove she wasn't cheating, she showed me the chat history between her and her best friend, and found the exact same sections of the conversations in the messages between them, and saw that they were from long before we had met. She also explained to me that the guy who sent me the message on Instagram was her first boyfriend from high school in France. He was apparently very emotionally and mentally manipulative during the time they were together, and for her to get any sort of affection or praise from him, she would do what he wanted and let him do whatever he wanted to her. She said she didn't understand how he was able to get the screenshots or the SX tapes that he didn't even take. We eventually came to the conclusion that he had hacked into her account somehow. She said that the two guys in the videos were short-term Korean boyfriends from when she first moved overseas. To say I was relieved was an understatement, but I still had the feeling of disgust when I looked at my wife. Over the next few months, I tried pretending that everything was okay, but I couldn't get over what I had seen. She was a completely different woman in my eyes. I know body count shouldn't matter, but reading the messages about how many guys she slept with really bugged the SHT out of me. We had told each other our body counts in the past, and I wasn't bothered with it at all. She literally could have told me any number, and I think I would have been fine with it as long as it was the truth. But now that I know that not only did she lie about the amount of men she had been with, but also the fact that half of those men were guys I knew quite well, and considered friends, destroyed me. I eventually told her how I felt when she blew up at me one day for not wanting to have sex with her. She started crying again and asked if we should cancel the wedding. I said we should consider it but not act on anything yet, hoping the way I was feeling was just a phase and that I would eventually get over it. The last thing I wanted was for my friends and family to ask why we're not getting married anymore and me having to explain the things that happened. We agreed to go to couples counseling together with the goals of fixing our relationship and getting married on the date we had set before that SHT happened. We found couples counseling to be very helpful, and one of the best things we both liked, while at our sessions, was that we were able to try to verbally express what we were feeling, and literally have it translated perfectly into a cohesive explanation by our couples counselor. After 10 sessions, we had been given a list of strategies for us to use together to mend our relationship, and I had been referred to a psychologist for some private sessions that I found super beneficial. At this stage, everything was almost much the same as it was before I was sent the messages, but I honestly never quite felt the same or trusted my wife again the way I used to. We did end up going through with the wedding, believing that my wife's past shouldn't affect my feelings towards her, and that if we did end up breaking up, it would effectively mean that her ex succeeded in his objective and would have got what he wanted. About a year after our wedding, my wife planned a trip to France to visit all the family and friends. I was originally meant to go with her, but couldn't as I had just been given a promotion, and had only been in the position about a month. While she was on her trip, I got another message on Instagram from her ex saying, "She only likes me," followed by another SX tape of her. After watching for a few seconds, I just assumed it was another old video that was taken and blocked him. I planned to show my wife what he sent, but ended up totally forgetting about the whole thing. Fast forward to today. We have been married for almost 2 years now and have a baby on the way. During one of her obstetrician appointments that I went to with her, there was talk of her possible due dates and around what day she would have conceived. While sitting there and listening, I was doing the math in my head and realized something wasn't adding up. The period she would have had to have conceived is when she was back in France visiting her family. I stayed quiet and convinced myself that I obviously wasn't calculating correctly because I'd always been SHT at maths. But I had remembered what her ex had sent me, and had a gut feeling that something was very wrong. Eventually my insecurities got the better of me, and I ended up watching the video he sent, trying to find any clues of when it was taken. Unfortunately, I concluded that the video must have been taken at some point when we were together, as I could see a scar on her pubic area that she had given herself by waxing when we were on our honeymoon. After thinking about this for a while, I've decided not to confront her with what I know. I'm not going to ask friends or family for support. I'm not going to go to counseling. Fewer people that know, the better. I don't think I can live with the shame of people knowing that my wife is giving birth to another man's child. I'm going to wait for the baby to be born to see if it is mine before I make any final decisions. Thank you to everyone who read everything I had to say. I really need to get this out, and not being able to tell anyone what I was going through was driving me insane. I've had a few comments questioning the timeline. Our wedding was in September 2022. Her trip to France was in mid-December 2023, and she was there for about 5 weeks. The due date for the baby is in late September. Comments during: if you're not going to stay with her, why wait until the baby is born? That will just cause more unnecessary drama. Start the process now, do a paternity test when possible, and start the next chapter of your life. If the child is yours, then you do the right thing towards the baby. Colossal_penis_haver. Dude, don't wait. Forget the shame. Imagine a lifetime of being treated like a doormat. Imagine this happening again and again and again. I'm pretty sure you can get prenatal DNA tests. You can know before the baby is born whether or not it's yours. Best of luck. Goodbajeki. Please don't feel shame for something you can't control and your wife cheating on you. You can only control your actions. I would sincerely get a DNA test on the baby. Personally, this is how I would bring this up when you confront her. Hey, this is a weird question, but I don't know why, but I can't remember. That scar on your area. When did that happen again? Was that before we got together? It was after we got together on our honeymoon, right? If she answers yes, it was after or on the boom. Serve her divorce papers. And run and demand a paternity test. Even if the child is yours, there is no shame in divorced parents. She is nothing but a liar and a cheat. If she says the scar was before you were dating, then you may want to hold back, but more likely she'll be like, come on, you remember. It happened when we were XXX, remember, on our honeymoon. Showing her the video is up to you, but I would talk to your lawyer solicitor. In that you can drop the evidence later to her. OP, thank you for the advice. I honestly don't think I can bother with trying to get the truth from her anymore. At this stage, I'm done with her. I just want to make sure that the baby's health isn't negatively affected in any way, whether he's mine or not. Update 1 month later. First of all, I would like to thank everyone who commented with advice, and also those people who criticize my thoughts and actions. Reading multiple perspectives about my situation helped open my narrowed view, and I think it gave me a more balanced perspective. I'm not too sure how I should write this update since there's so much information that was dropped on me, and I'm not too sure how to put it into words. It honestly feels like my life was pulled out from under me, and I'm not too sure how to comprehend it all at the moment. A lot of people criticize me for not telling my wife about the latest video, and a lot of you also suggested that I check the EXIF data to see what date the video was created. Following everyone's advice, I did both. I first checked the metadata to see the creation date, which showed that it was taken on the 1st of January 2024, at 1:18 a.m. It was sent to me on the 6th of January 2024. I kept in mind that people were saying that data can easily be edited and didn't take the newfound information too seriously, even though it looked like a relatively recent video. After seeing the metadata, I sat her down on the couch to tell her about her video. I went into the conversation fully prepared with a list of things to say I had made with my therapist. I made sure to not make accusations, or even make anything I said sound like an accusation, and was 100% prepared for her to blow up at me for not telling her about it sooner. My therapist gave me a guide of how I should deliver the information, and how I should attempt to give her back control of the situation by offering to show her the video, letting her watch it on her own, and deleting it in front of her when she was ready. I started by saying that I had received another SX tape from her ex, and when I received it, then I went into why I didn't tell her immediately after receiving it, or after she got back from her trip. After giving my explanation, I asked her if she wanted to see the video, to which she said yes, so I gave her my phone, and she pretty much immediately started the video as soon as I handed my phone over to her, which didn't give me a chance to get up and leave the room to let her watch it on her own. As soon as I heard the audio from the video, I immediately stood up and was turning to walk to a different room, when she grabbed my pant leg and started profusely apologizing. I said there was nothing to apologize for as this was from before she met me, and that I should be apologizing to her for keeping it from her. She asked me why I decided to tell her now, and I told her the truth about my concerns about the due date, and how it wasn't quite making sense in my head, and that's when she lost it. She grabbed my hand and kept saying it was a mistake and that she wasn't thinking straight because she was drunk. My heart just dropped, and I knew instantly what she meant by her repetitive ramblings. I told her to tell me what exactly happened, or I'd leave immediately. Long story short, she cheated on me when she went on her trip to France with her ex, who was sending me the screenshots and videos. They ended up having us ex after catching up at a New Year's Eve party they were both at. They're from a small town in central France with only a population of a few thousand, and apparently, they had seen each other at the local supermarket a few days after her arriving at her hometown. My wife and her ex are from the same friendship group. They all went to the same kindergarten, primary school, middle school, and high school, which is how they ended up at the same New Year's Eve party. She also told me that her ex had admitted to hacking into her Facebook account to gain access to the sex tapes she had made and shared with her other exes. Although calling what he did hacking makes it sound quite sophisticated, she hadn't changed her passwords since high school, and he still knew them when he got access to all her accounts. So effing dumb. She begged me not to divorce her and tried to bargain with me, promising it would be the only time she'd ever cheat, promising that she'd be the best wife to me, letting me have sex with any and as many women as I'd like, and even stooping so low as to offer sequel acts. I said I would only consider staying if she would do two things. Give me her phone so I can go through her messages and get a paternity test done. She instantly agreed to the paternity test, but was a bit more hesitant about handing her phone over, but eventually agreed. While looking through her phone, I found more evidence that she cheated on me on New Year's Day, as well as evidence that she had cheated on me one other time from her period tracker app. She uses the app to track her periods and sequel activity. I just had to go to the dates when I wasn't in the same country as her and see if she had sex or not. Unfortunately for her, she was very diligent with keeping track of her sequel activities. By this point, I had already made up my mind about the relationship and just left. I'm currently staying at a hotel and will be moving into my apartment that I have been trying to rent out for a while. I've spoken to both my solicitor and my wife, and have agreed to go to the mandatory counseling in order for me to be able to go through with the divorce, which will start in October. We've also agreed to get the paternity test done after the baby is born. And I got my in-laws plane tickets to come to Australia earlier than originally planned so they can look after their daughter. Comments T. Daggett. Sorry that the worst has been realized. But congratulations on your new chapter in life. Just remember that cheaters cheat for them. And it has nothing to do with you. Just look out for yourself for a while, and then hop back in the game. You got this. Sired Gallet. That sucks. Checking the period tracker app was smart though. Nice going. Shows that this wasn't a one-time thing. Cheating is one thing. Lying is another. Promising it would be the only time she'd ever cheat. Yeah, you just got caught cheating and you're going to lie again. No thanks. Update 2-3 months later. It's been quite a while since my last post. And over the last month I've been getting so many people asking for an update on my life, but more specifically asking about the results of the paternity test. A lot has changed since my last update, especially the living arrangements with my wife. I can happily say that I am the father. I was with my wife in the hospital birthing suite when my son was born and stayed with her for the 5 days at the maternity ward. We got a paternity test. Even though I was fairly sure that he was mine when he was born, he looks like a bigger-eyed version of me when I was a newborn. About a week after getting the swabs done, the positive parentage results came back. Before my son was born, my wife and I had been living separately. With the only interactions we had been her sending me daily messages wishing me well and wishing me good night. After my son was born we were still living apart, but I would go over every day to help feed and change him. We still had minimal interactions and would only really talk to each other once a week for our mandatory marriage counseling that we had to go to in order to get a divorce. We had seen psychologists from 2 different clinics, and I felt like they were both trying to gaslight me into thinking that I was being unreasonable for wanting to divorce my cheating wife. And one of them had even said that I shouldn't expect a modern marriage to be completely monogamous in this day and age. The first sessions of counseling at the first clinic seemed pretty standard. A lot of telling each other how we feel with the counselor in the background only speaking when providing prompts to get us talking. If the counseling session continued as it would have been fine. But as soon as she suggested that we should accept the idea of bringing other people into the bedroom to better understand and connect with one another, that is when I started looking for a different psychologist. The second psychologist we saw spent 2 sessions trying to convince me that it's normal for married couples to have sex with people outside of the marriage, and that it would be selfish of me to make the baby grow up without a father figure in the home, even if he isn't mine. This was before we got the paternity test results back. From that moment on, I decided that there was no point to me going to marriage counseling. I told my wife that I'd put the divorce proceeding on hold only if she agreed to sign a post-nup, which she immediately signed as soon as I gave it to her. My plan is to just wait a year before filing for divorce, without any restrictions and bullshit mandatory marriage counseling. And now at least my assets are somewhat protected. Currently I have moved back in with my wife, but am still sleeping in separate rooms. I decided to move back in just to make it easier for me to spend time with my son, and to also be able to look after him when my wife and her parents need a break. After being with him for what is almost a month now, I decided that I would be physically present in my son's life and help raise him. I believe that it is my duty as his biological father to give him the best life possible, no matter the discomfort I feel of having to interact with his mother. What I am trying to think about now is how that is going to be possible after the divorce, and how that will impact his emotional and mental development. Are there other people out there who are able to raise their children this way? And if so, how are you coping with the arrangement? And thank you to all those who were concerned about my love life. But nothing is happening. I haven't thought about dating or sex since finding out about my wife's cheating. Edit. I'm still going to get a divorce. I'm just waiting until the courts allow me to file for a divorce, without having to go through mandatory marriage counseling. I have also made my wife sign a postnuptial agreement, so I can save as much of my assets as possible when we do divorce. Comments. Risotto 5019. And has she continued to have interaction with the affair partner since you discovered the affair? Up. I think she's said that she's cut all contact. Doesn't matter to me anymore, to be honest. The damage is already done. He can have her. Basic satisfaction 35. Does she try to interact with you in the house, or is it only small things about your son? Up. She does try to talk to me all the time. She's also tried 2 times to get intimate with me. Second story. My narcissistic sister demanded I sell her my breast milk to her boss's 2-month-old baby, neglecting my 9-month-old baby. Now she showed up at my house calling me an entitled bee and threatening to assault me. So I called the cops on her. Now my parents are furious at me. I 23F have a 9-month-old baby who I EV. He has hand, foot and mouth disease at the moment. This will make sense later. My sister 21F, who will call Sarah, has a boss who has a 2-month-old baby and is trying to breastfeed, but is not producing enough milk for the baby. Sarah asked me if I would be willing to sell some of the milk for her boss. I agreed and we decided to try and meet up the next day. The next day I messaged Sarah to let her know I wasn't going to be able to meet up with her, because my baby had a fever of 103 degrees Fahrenheit, 39.4 degrees Celsius, and I wasn't going to be able to leave the house with him. I asked her if I could meet up with her in the morning, and she told me she couldn't do that, then got upset and said she promised her boss the milk the next day, and asked if my husband could drop it off. I told her no, he didn't want to, and it wasn't his responsibility, and I could drop it later when he got home. This is where I think I may have been On my way to drop the milk off, Sarah called me and asked me if I was there yet. I told her I was on the way, and then she said she didn't mean to be an inconvenience. The drop-off was 30 minutes from my house, and I told her this kind of was because of how sick my son is. She then started yelling at me over the phone, calling me an entitled bee, and saying, "Everyone needs to bend over backward for you." I told her never mind, and I wasn't going to drop off the milk if she was going to yell at me and treat me this way. I hung up the phone and started heading back to my house. She called me again. When I answered, she yelled, "I'm showing up at your effing house and we're going to have problems. I've spent thousands on you and your goddamn baby." This is not true. The most expensive thing she bought me was a rocker as a present and a couple of lunches. I told her, "If you show up at my house, I'm calling the cops and you don't have to worry about seeing me or my goddamn baby again," and hung up. On the way to my house, Sarah called our dad and told him some form of the argument we had, and he told her to go to my house to pick the milk up. He told me she was on the way and to leave it on the porch. I told him no and that she wasn't welcome at my house. When my sister gets upset, she turns into a different person. When she arrived at my house, she started banging on my door and told me she was recording and there were people in her car. I messaged her and told her to leave because she threatened me and I would call the cops if she didn't leave. This made her even more upset, and she started pounding on my door and said, "Now we have a effing problem. You need to open the door now." This is all her yelling through the door. At this point I had only messaged her once because when she gets this way there is no talking to her. I decided this wasn't going to get better, and I decided to call the cops. As I was on the phone with the police, she started trying to kick down my door while on the phone with our dad, who was telling her to get back in her car and leave. When the cops showed up, they removed her from my property. My dad called me shortly after and said I was the and being petty. Ada for not giving her the breast milk after she started yelling at me and then threatening me. I'm sorry for any grammar mistakes. I'm exhausted from taking care of my son and the situation. Ida. Thank you to everyone asking about my son. He is doing a lot better, and his only concern now is can enter object that shouldn't be in his mouth fit in my mouth? Update. Before I get to the update, I just want to address some frequently asked questions. My son is feeling better. For those asking why I didn't take him to the ER, I had already taken him to the doctor twice, including once that day. His doctor told me to take him if he reached 104 degrees Fahrenheit, and the fever did not go down with medication, and his fever was being controlled with medication. Here in the US it would have been a $2,000 or more visit for some Tylenol and to be sent home to watch him because his fever was going down. This isn't the first time my sister has acted violently toward me. I'll discuss that in the update. To the update. After the events that happened with my sister, my dad and stepmom went on vacation for a week per planned, and I didn't want to bother them while they were enjoying their time away. Once they got back, I messaged them so my dad, stepmom, husband, and I could have a sit-down talk one night. The talk went well, and my dad apologized for telling her to go to my house because the story she gave him was me wasn't bringing the milk to Sarah and went home. So he told her, if it's that big of a deal and you need it tonight, then go get it. Don't make her leave the house when my son is sick. We also discussed her behavior recently. She has admitted to me that she has tried a drug that shares a name with a soda. There have been no major changes in her behavior since then until now, which made me okay with my family still being around her. After that night, I believe she may still be taking that drug. When I brought that up to my dad, he agreed and he wants to talk to her alone and possibly send her to rehab. I also brought up to him how she started to suffocate our family dog when we were younger because she was mad at me. When I said this, I thought my dad was going to get on the phone and start chewing her out. I never told him because I thought it was just one of her outbursts, and I didn't want her to get in trouble. While my dad was on vacation, my husband and I went to my mom and stepdad's house. I told them about what happened and my suspicions, along with what she did to the dog, and they were very disappointed with her and asked me if I remembered the stuff she used to do. My mom said growing up she would always have to protect me from her because when she would get upset, she would pin me against the wall and try to beat me up. My mom also said she threatened them, saying she would hit our little brother in the head with a hammer. He was 9 months old and she was about 7 years old at the time. My mom tried to get help for her, but my dad, he was a crappy dad at the time, convinced my sister to come live with him, by saying that our mom hated her and was going to send her away because they didn't like her. When my sister moved in with our dad, there wasn't much my mom could do because she wasn't on her insurance anymore, so she just urged my dad to get her help. I also found out more information from my grandma. My sister went to her for some medical problems because she didn't want to pay to be seen, not the first time she's done this. My sister's boss had already paid my sister, and my sister spent the money and didn't have money to pay the boss back. I'm not sure where this money went or why she was spending the money that was supposed to go to my family, but now her extreme outburst has a reason. I have not talked to or seen my sister since all of this has gone down. I have her blocked on everything. I appreciate all of the kind words and advice I was given. My whole life I've been gaslit to believe that I needed to forgive her and move on when she would have these outbursts, and reading these comments gave me the kick in the butt. I needed to stand up for myself. I'm sorry the update took so long to come out. Between work, school, having a sick kid and then getting sick myself, I had little time to sit down and write this. I'll probably update again if anything crazy happens. Third story. Cheating. My boyfriend randomly broke up with me via text, accusing me of cheating, showing a Facebook profile picture that looks nothing like me, while living in my house. So I went to my house with my burly brothers and kicked his lazy arse out of my house. A few minutes ago, my boyfriend of 3 years dumped me via text. It really shocked me, and his reasoning was that he found a Facebook profile that was apparently mine. It's not, and that I was a lying bee who plays games and that we were done. This completely came out of left field. Last we spoke, which was not even 2 hours ago, everything seemed fine. I'm a few hours away at the moment because I was visiting my family for Father's Day. Also, I've been helping my dad because of a car accident that has left him disabled. It's been really hard for him, so I decided to spend a weekend with him. My boyfriend had to stay behind because of work. My phone was on vibrate, and I woke up to it vibrating somewhere in my room. He called twice in a row, which is a little unusual, so I tried to call him. A part of me was worried something bad happened because he never just calls seconds apart. He forwarded my call to voicemail after one ring, and then I got a string of enraged texts. First was a picture of a profile of some woman who shares my name, and the rest were filled with anger. How I played him for a fool and that he was done playing games. Firstly, the woman in the pic looks nothing like me. She has black hair and blue eyes. I have auburn hair and green eyes. I also have a beauty mark above my lip on the left-hand side. And this woman has nothing. My boyfriend blocked my number, Facebook and all that lovely stuff, and I am at a loss. This is all very sudden and all I feel is anger and pain. I don't want my dad to hear me crying. He has enough on his plate to deal with. A little background. My boyfriend cheated on me a few months into the relationship, and I didn't learn about it until a year later. I ended up forgiving him and things seemed fine. He was remorseful and did his damnedest to regain my trust. I can't help but wonder if he did this because he did something wrong and wants an excuse for it, or he wanted to dump me in order for him to cheat without cheating. Tomorrow is his birthday too. I wonder if he wants to be free for that day. It just makes me cry. I won't be taking him back. No way in hell. He's living in my house. Nothing is in his name. He can F off. Right now I'm kind of shattered at the moment because I invested so much time and emotion in this person. I forgave him when he cheated on me, and now he's pulling random Facebook profiles.